Welcome to the All Clear Firefighter Wellness Podcast, where grit meets growth and excuses get burned away. This is about mental, physical, and personal growth. Light your fire within. Let's get after it.
All clear, where the truth cuts through.
I've got Corley Moore with us today. You probably know him from the Weekly Scrap Podcast, another fellow podcaster. How you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Travis. Really excited to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. And as you know, with podcasters, we like to talk a lot. So I always enjoy getting to talk to another one. We don't get to see each other face to face very often. So why don't you tell us, for the folks that don't know, who you are, what you do, and what you're doing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Corley Moore is the name. Firehouse Vigilance, like you said, is the game. Firehouse Vigilance was started in the tail end of I did 28 years on the job. Moore Fire Department, all the same department, no relation to the last name, just complete happenstance that I worked and lived in the city that bore the family name. And then in the later part of my career, I started Firehouse Vigilance, which its byline is the never-ending fight against complacency. And that's its mission, is to never stop the fight against complacency. And from that came the Weekly Scrap, which is probably the biggest vehicle that has the most reach. That the success of the Weekly Scrap podcast has been very humbling and I'm one of the luckiest dudes in the fire service for all the people I get to talk to.
Yeah, I know how awesome it is when you have people that are willing to listen to you, especially when, sometimes we feel like our opinions aren't that valuable, but
no doubt. We
know that you've got a lot of insight and opinions about leadership, and that's something we really focus here on All Clear. We try to talk about how to build a better firefighter from the inside out. A lot of it has to do with how you do with your crew. And, just to kind of start the conversation, firehouse culture is something that a lot of folks have on their mind these days. It can be positive, it can be negative. But from your experience and learning about firehouse culture and teaching about it and studying it, what would you say are some of the indications that culture is going in a good direction, or maybe some red flags that it's going the wrong way? What would you say?
Great question. Good question to start off with. I love talking about culture. And so I will start with the negative, and then we'll finish up on the positive side of things. But on the negative side of things, I think the number one of the biggest red flags you should notice is when your people go silent, especially your high performers. When they quit giving you feedback, that is one of the surefire early warning signs that there is something amiss in the zeitgeist of your organization. And when your high performers quit giving you feedback, when they quit expressing their opinions, that is cracks in the hull, and you better be paying attention, because there's nothing good that comes after that. And that to me is one of the biggest warning signs that you should be on the lookout for, is when especially your high performers start getting quiet.
So when you say a high performer, how would you define a high performer? Would you say their opinions are most important, or would you say just about any opinion's important, but theirs probably carry a little more weight in that situation?
Well, we have to define the term high performer. And what I mean by high performer is, in your organization, if we're talking fire service, in the fire service, it is someone who holds themselves to a standard that is above the organizational standard. So the organization has a standard that they will enforce, and if you don't meet it, there will be repercussions, there will be accountability. A lot of places that's a very low bar, and some places it's higher.
True.
But every organization is stratified into people that will push themselves beyond that. And if it's a company officer, usually they will drag their crew with them, and they'll be a high-performing crew. And if it's a battalion chief, then the same thing can be said for the battalion, all the way up to districts and et cetera. With each level, of course, being more difficult to filter down. But when I say high performers, that's what I mean by that. And the thing with high performers is that they need to feel, and I use the term high performer, but it's just someone that holds themselves to a high standard. They need to feel valued, heard, and understood in an organization.
Sure.
Because when they don't feel those things, they will seek to find it, and then their frustration mounts, and then they shut down. And so the reason it's such a good indicator is because your high performers will give you feedback if you allow it. And it's not that their opinion is more important. It is that it is such a quick and clear, it's the bird in the cave, so to speak. When it goes quiet, you better be paying attention.
I got you. So,
but it's not more important.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, I got you. So now, if that is an indication that things are moving in a good direction, what are some red flags that you're absolutely, at the bottom of the barrel?
No, that is.
Oh.
That was the bad. Sorry.
Sorry.
I started with the bad. My bad.
No worries. So how do you know you're going the right way?
I think a thing I often look for, whatever level you're talking about, if you're, again, levels of leadership, it's all about how you perceive yourself to be in relation to the people you're responsible for, which is that's my definition of leadership. You're responsible for these people that you're responsible for. I don't like to say that are below you.
Right.
Because that's not what I mean. But the good indicator is when the people that you're responsible for are acting autonomously and they are accomplishing tasks without being given direction, without being given specific responsibilities. You will have to give people tasks and responsibilities. That's an organization, that's a business,
Sure.
that's whatever. But when the people you're responsible for are fulfilling tasks without being told, when they're doing it autonomously and they're feeling empowered, that is one of the biggest, if red is bad, then the green flag good. That is one of the best green flags you can see, is people acting autonomously and accomplishing things without being implicitly told to do so.
I got you. So honestly, those are really good indicators as to how your departmental culture is moving. But you mentioned leadership is a key part when you deal with organizational culture. But when we talk about that, there are tons of slogans and buzzwords, and you watch YouTube and social media, pick your poison, and they all hoorah, go get them, all these slogans and things like that.
Sure.
But what are, in your experience, the qualities, the behaviors, those actions that leaders can do day to day to make them more effective and help them build a strong team, especially in a busier type of environment?
Absolutely. Again, phenomenal questions. I think this is what I call this. You're getting into my personal philosophy now, so I'm going to give you a little bit of that. But I think clarity is concept one. You have to define, what success looks like, whatever you're talking about. So if you're a leader and you want to know what are those behaviors, what are those actions you can take, concrete things you can take, the most important one you can take is to clearly define what success, what excellence looks like for you, for what you're responsible for. Because once you have a crystal clear picture of what success looks like, now you have a measuring stick to see how well you're doing. And now you can actually see what behaviors will actually have an effect on moving that metric. Because so many times people don't take the time to define what does success look like for my crew, if I'm talking about company officer, for my battalion. And if they don't take the time to do that, then I promise you, life will give you a to-do list, and the people above you, the stakeholders above you, your bosses will give you a to-do list that will keep you busy and keep you chasing your tail and make you ineffective. So the most important thing is to get clarity on what is important to you. Now, once you have that is where you can start sharing values of that. I hate to use the word vision because it's such a buzzword, but values with the people you're responsible for, so that they can start buying in to what that success looks like. And now they know what they need to accomplish so that they can be successful according to, again, vision. But when the values are shared and you have clarity on that, and you can share that and communicate with that clearly, no matter what we're talking about, whether we're talking about the mundane day-to-day tasks of getting inspections done and checking making sure the boring stuff everybody hates, the checkbox training on the computer, or the paperwork, all the stuff. But once you have success clearly defined, and now you can measure against that to see, and that allows you to prioritize task goals. Man, it's a perfect. I'm trying to think of the right word to use here, and I'm coming up short. But it's just like the panacea for if a leader in a leadership position can get that clarity, then they can actually start making progress. And that's why it's so important to me that I say that and get that out there.
We'll return after these messages.
Wake up slow, grab your mug, it's time to roll. All clear coffee fire in your soul, brewed by firefighter, strong and true. One bean at a time, we're looking out for you. From first sip through your last call of the day, fuel your fight, keep the drag away. Get your bag now, don't wait, don't stall. Allclearpodcast.com. Hey! We got beans for all.
So when you talk about, actions and once you have defined what excellence is, getting talk. When you look at that, what works for Corley, would that also work for Travis, guaranteed 100% every time, or does everybody kind of have to maybe find their own path to excellence in leadership, if that makes any sense?
No, absolutely. No, and that's why it's so important that you get that clarity, because your clarity and what's important to you in your organization with the people you're working with could be, I promise you they're going to be similar, but they're not going to be the same. They could be, I don't think they will be polar opposites.
Sure.
But because the buzzwords exist for a reason, but no, the nuance of the differences and just the people you're responsible for and who you're dealing with will change what that clarity looks like. Because you could have an old grizzled senior man or woman with 35 years on the job that you're responsible for, who's checked out, been to the fair, seen the bear, hates admin, and you could get the clarity of what success looks like is getting them to buy in just a little bit and invest in those young people on your crew. And that's a huge success. Where I could be working at an organization where I have nothing but young and eager people. Mm-hmm. And so my vision of success is completely, the values that I need to share with them and the clarity is completely different story. And that's the nuance that you just can't, there is no formula I can hand you and say, this will work.
Yep. And that's why it's important to have conversations like this, because there's a ton of books you can read and classes you can go to that there's always a small piece you can take away. And I had a chief tell me one time, he said, when you look at other leaders, you always take something away, whether it's what you want to imitate or what you absolutely don't want to do in your own case. You always take something away from it. So
I feel like the don'ts almost stick harder than the do's.
And they're more useful too.
A lot of times.
I had a chief one time, he always used to say, if nobody's calling me, I'm not calling you. So I always appreciate that. And his thought was, if people aren't complaining about what you're doing and you're doing your job and nobody's letting me know that, Travis is terrible, then you're doing your job. He said, then I'm going to let you do what you're doing and there's no need for me to get involved. So, I kind of respect that. And I try to, take care of my guys sort of the same way. So, No,
well, it's empowering when you're responsible, like if you're a chief and you're responsible for 5 crews, and if you tell your crews, hey, run your crew, go be awesome. People want to be awesome. Now give them the sidelines and the goalpost and let them run.
Teach them what a foul is.
That's it. The rules, you can't play football without rules. Rules exist for a reason. Yep. But man, give them the rules and then say, go nuts and watch them impress you, man. Autonomy is such an empowering thing for people.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, when it comes to stress on the job, things seem to be getting crazier by the minute in the world we live in.
Oh yeah.
We deal with high volume of calls. We deal with traumatic runs. We deal with, politics, whether it be around the kitchen table or politics in the department. There's always something that seems to impact us in one way or another, whether it be personally or as a crew. But what can we as officers do in real time to protect our people when it comes to things like burnout, mental health, just getting sucked into the politics of the department? How do we strengthen them so they don't fall into those traps?
Oh, great. Again, beautiful stuff. And when we figure this out 100%, we need to write a book and it'll be a bestseller because it'll apply to the world, not just the fire service.
Sure.
But, I think, first of all, in the fire service specifically is that I think the calls and the trauma and the stress, the sleep, all of it matters. So I'm qualifying what I'm about to say because I want to be very clear that those things matter. But I think it's low-hanging fruit that we use to justify the toxic atmospheres that are allowed to pervade most departments from a lack of leadership taking care of their people. And so I think that Chief David Rhodes at his FDIC speech 2023, 2024. I'm getting old enough that the years are blurring. So when he said it, he said I wish I could just rattle it off and quote it, but the true cost is the toxic chiefs and toxic officers who are not taking care of their people. That's kind of a paraphrase of what he said. And I think that is really the lack of psychological safety for people who are in a high stress, fast-paced, ever-changing, high-consequent environment. When it gets real, I'm not talking about day-to-day around the station, but when it gets real and they're required to make decisions that they got to hang their hat on, and they need to know that the people above them have their back. They're not looking to hang them out to dry. And I think there is a stigma, not a stigma, just a shadow that kind of lurks where you don't feel safe making a call you have to make. And you need to be able to make it at the drop of a hat. And I think that's a huge part. The main thing we can do is give our people the psychological safety to make them know that they are valued, heard, understood within the organization so that they can properly deal with those things that are very real. The trauma, the calls, the sleep schedule, all of it. The stress, the eustress, the distress, all of it.
You know, one of the things that I've heard several podcasters talk about, several chiefs say things like that. We see, you know, I'm not trying to bag on the new folks coming to the fire service. It's not a generational thing, but it seems like people come in and, you know, when we talk about like psychological stress and mental stress and things like that, they're more easily susceptible to it than say those that are older like us. You know, we obviously deal with things, but I think some people almost want to hang their hat on the fact that they are damaged, quote unquote, when it comes to
softer.
Yeah. And I think you do have to make yourself resilient to a certain level, even to do the job. And
no, there needs to be a level of rub some dirt on it. That needs to exist. It does. And it's gone away in society. It's gone away in the fire service. We need, I mean, what's really encouraging to me is, and I'll reference this, and I don't mean it in the literal sense. So please roll with me. But the t-shirt that's been going around, which is bring fistfights back to the firehouse, right? Now,
I've seen them.
I do not agree. There's no need for violence in the firehouse, but that's not real. And I understand some people actually think that's what it means. But I think that honestly, the reason that shirt's going around is because people want accountability in the firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
They're sick and tired of just, and I use the word tolerance, but tolerance of low performance, bad behaviors, and then people no accountability for it whatsoever. So they say, bring fistfights back to the firehouse, because they just see that as as a form of accountability. And I completely lost my train of thought because I got sidetracked.
Sorry.
So the original question, hit me back with it again, because I got sidetracked on the accountability aspect.
So what can we as officers do to protect our people from all of these things? Like
all
the
those
burnout?
things.
Yeah. How do we protect them?
Again, that psychological safety is so important. It goes back to, and I'm going to sound like a broken record at some point as we talk about this stuff, because it really does come back to first principles, which is clarity. If you have a vision of what success looks like for your crew, you can lay that out for them. They then can excel. They then can meet those things and feel like they are accomplishing the mission that makes them feel successful. And you have a measuring stick to actually say, no, we are doing what we need to take care of. I think most of the counseling sessions I did while on the job, where I would counsel a firefighter over a call that they were having trouble with, 90% of what they were struggling with was not the call. It was their guilt from feeling unprepared that they could not make a difference during that call, that they should have done more so that they could have made a difference on that call. That's what they were struggling with, if I really put it into words. And so I think that when you can give them the clarity to say, no, this is what we do, this is what we prepare for. So on that day, we don't have to deal with that. We can say we did our best. We were prepared. And that's a tough one, because you can always what if things to death. And that's a tough row to hoe when you really start going down it. But if you give your people a vision of success, so you can say, no, hey, listen, if we're talking just fire response, we're going to turn out fast. We're going to be the fastest turnout crew on this thing. We're going to get to the rigs fast. Then we're going to respond quickly and efficiently and safely for the people that we serve. But when we get there, we are going to operate in an efficient, with violence of action, and take care of business. And when you have that and you can hang your hat on that and that guides you through your training, that way when that call does come, you can knock it out of the park and you can do, and the fire gets a vote and the outcome may not be completely in your control, but you can hang your hat. When you sit down at that dinner table, when it's all said and done, you can look at your crew and say, we gave them the best shot we could.
We did all we could do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it not be the, hey, we did everything we could do. Nothing else we could have done. It's not a pithy throwaway statement.
Right.
It's coming from the heart.
No,
So
no doubt. And
I'm not sure I answered the question, but
hey, you know what? I think you hit it right where we were going. Because as leaders, we do have the responsibility to take care of people. But, even when we look inside of our department, whether it be, the best department in the world or it's one that really needs work, there's always little areas that seem to not be cool. Things seem to be sideways, whether it be uniform policy or I don't know, pick
that's a big one. Yeah.
I know, pick your thing. But when it comes to stuff like that, what's an effective way that a leader can kind of turn around that cultural issue without alienating maybe the offenders, if that makes sense? How do you turn it around without making somebody feel like, oh man, I that's just the worst thing I've ever heard? How do you correct the small pockets to make the overall organization move?
I think again, the broken record thing of clarity, getting everybody bought into the same values is the key, because what you're talking about is symptoms of not having that. Because when you don't have the shared values that everybody measures success by, then you have small pockets that form their own measuring stick. And your high performers will set up a measuring stick that is up here, and your low performers will have a measuring stick that is down here. And then uniforms is one of the biggest ones, because I don't know if it's just because it's something people can control. Like, you can't make me look crisp and clean. You know what I'm saying? So I can look sloppy, and now you have to say something. I don't know if it's just because when they have no control, that's a thing they can control. So they're going to put their pants in their boots. They're going to leave their shirt untucked because that's something they can control. So, but that's a symptom. And one thing I will say, and I saw this post on social media, I love it. It's Young Officers on Fire, Rob Fisher, Ryan Selleck. And it was just a social media post of some writing on a whiteboard, but it said, when culture is weak, rules multiply. And I absolutely love that, because you go to a place and you have tons of SOPs and rules and just rules upon rules upon rules. And I'm not talking about tactical procedures. I'm a huge believer in tactical procedures and game plans. Okay. I am. And everybody being on the same page. So I'm all for it. But what I'm talking about is just the multiplication of rules and memos that hang on the board and that come out every day. And when culture is weak, they try to fix it with rules. And again, rules are important. You can't play football without knowing where the sidelines are and the goalposts are. You can't do it. But rules are important. But rules don't coach the football team. And rules don't win the game. And so when the culture's weak, you're going to see a lot more rules. You're going to see a memo come out that says, hey, tuck in your shirt. You're going to see a memo comes out that says, these are the boots you have to wear. You're going to see a memo come out. And I'm picking on uniforms right now because it is low-hanging fruit.
Very much so.
And hoodies. I mean, hoodies and hats. Let's talk about probably the biggest issue in the fire service, according to some chiefs, I guess. But when the culture is weak, that's what you focus on, because you're addressing symptoms instead of giving your people a clear vision of what success looks like, so they can all strive towards it together. And man, when people are given a purpose and they're able to pull together, human beings are amazing. Like they are amazing when they have a shared purpose. It's powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And when people are grouping together, what was that? They say never underestimate the power of stupid people in large numbers. So
In large
you got to
groups.
make sure it doesn't go the other way either. But
Well, that's the thing, is when you stomp on a puddle, man, it makes these little small puddles everywhere. You know, you spread the puddles, and then those ones, and and you give someone a common enemy. If you're in a leadership position and you set yourself up as the enemy, man, you want to see people pull together. Give them something to pull against.
very true.
So it is, man. So firefighters especially, again, they're a special breed.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Now, last season, we did an episode on changing shifts, new leadership in the fire service. You know, people like us are aging out. I'm not calling you old, but
I am.
you know,
I retired this year. That's so officially.
I've
I'm
got a
old.
few more to go, but
Fair.
but you know, we're we think one way. I'm Gen X. I think a very specific way about how to handle things and do things. But yet we see these new chiefs, new, captains. I mean, even down to even just new firefighters in general. Somebody once said leadership is when you have something to pass on to other people. So anybody can really be a leader on some level.
Oh, yeah.
But what skills do you think will help this next generation of leaders prosper and be good at their job and be very effective?
Oh, good question. Great question. You also, I'm gonna loop back to this, so do not let me lose this because I want to touch on it. But you made me think of the generation question that I got sidetracked on earlier, which was how they're soft, and we talked about it a little bit. And I want to be clear when I say they're soft. What I mean, and the rub some dirt on it. We need that in the fire service, and I think every generation since the dawn of time, probably the next one came along and said, "Oh, these guys, these young kids coming in here, they're not tough." I guarantee you, in 1912. The old generation was talking about this new generation was too soft and weak, and it turned out to be the greatest generation.
Yep, absolutely.
And I promise you that's going on. But the big thing with the young generation now is their feedback loops. And this ties back into the skills question you're asking me, because this generation has been raised from birth on instant feedback loops.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have a concept of delayed gratification. It does not exist. And it's not their fault. And to us, Gen X, millennial, tweeners, or even boomers, everything's about delayed gratification. Discipline is actually putting off what you think you want now for what you want later, and things like that. But with this younger generation, the feedback loops are so fast. They can instantly find out the answer to a question without going to a library and having to look through an index box to find a book so they can read one version of one paragraph about it, right? They can have ChatGPT look up 42,000 sources and then give them a 3-sentence summary in 30 seconds. And it's unreal what technology and their grasp of it. But it applies to their lives too. Their feedback loops are so fast on their relationships, on their communication, or what we perceive as a complete lack of communication because they have no ability to carry on a conversation. And again, it sounds like I'm judging them, but I just understand where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
It is the feedback loop. A emoji doing this, an emoji doing this, or it just means different things. And I don't even get half of the stuff they're talking about, but they can communicate. And again, I think what's going to be a skill that you can use is learn to connect to them on their level, at the level that they communicate, because as alien as they are to us, we are just as alien to them. And it was Dave McGrail who said, and he might have been quoting someone, but I always credit who I heard it from. He said, the fire service is brutal at eating our young and disregarding our old. We disregard our old and we eat our young. Mm-hmm. And that's so true. And it's just a cycle that repeats. So I think the biggest thing is, and please do not mistake what I say. When I say rub some dirt on it, I mean it. They need to get tougher. They do. They need some of what we have. But we can't just say you need to be more like us.
No.
That's not the point.
You got to be different.
We got to get on their level, but that doesn't mean coddle them. I don't mean get down there on their level and act like them, but we have to understand each other and we have to invest. And it comes down to relationship. I mean, when you really melt it down, the number one skill you can do to set your people up for success, if you're in a leadership position, you're responsible for them, is to build a relationship with them. And then what you say matters. Okay. And then they can become more like you. And by just association, you will become more like them, and that bonds will form.
Yep. Build the buy-in, build your reputation so they'll trust you. And, sometimes the first 5 minutes of a conversation will make all the difference in the world, how you react to what people tell you.
Oh.
And especially, I sound like an old coot when I say this, the young people, when they come in and they tell you something, and if you blow up, then they'll shut down. And
oh yeah,
you can't do that. And, we do face a lot of challenges, but I think we now understand where we're headed with leadership. And I think, we just have to practice what we preach. And, like I said, with our podcast, the whole reason we have conversations like this, everybody's got some insight to bring to the table when it comes about leadership. And particularly as we deal with departments that are getting more and more high stress,
oh yeah,
busy, Budgets
Calls are not going down; they're going up.
and budgets getting cut and finding qualified people. I know where I'm at. It's a pain to try to find people that are, capable of doing the job decently. And
Right.
that's always a thing. But
And then you're left with: do we lower the standard or do we hold the standard?
Yep.
Do we put a butt in the seat that we don't think is qualified, or do we? It's dude. Again, great. Oof, yeah.
yeah, well,
We solved that one. That's another bestseller we can write.
well, hey, I got a few more book ideas, but a few more episodes definitely. So,
Yeah.
Corley, I really appreciate you taking time to kind of fill us in a little bit today on leadership and to talk about, some things that we need to keep on our radar, particularly in a high stress environment. But if people want to learn about you and what you're doing, where can they find you? I know the Weekly Scrap is a great place to find you, but why don't you load us up with all of your places that you can be found?
Firehousevigilance.com is the one-stop shop. Firehousevigilance.com, just all one word. And that is that you can find the podcast there. You can find all the books. There's the books I've written, the Book of Search, the Work of Search. Those are the books that I was involved in that Firehouse Vigilance put out, but I did not write them. Those are their own animals, and they're amazing. And now Fire Engineering is publishing the articles from Book of Search, so I'm super proud of that. All the money from those, and it's free. So please understand this: the Book of Search, Work of Search, they're both free. You can download the PDF 100% free. But if you want a physical copy, you can buy it on Amazon. And the proceeds from that go to Firefighter Rescue Survey and Firefighter Mayday Survey, and it's raised. It's been phenomenal. So I'm sorry, I lost track. You were asking for contact, and I went on a tirade. The
You're
Weekly
fine.
Scrap, of course, on YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts, find the Weekly Scrap. And the number one thing is become a vigilante. It's the coolest part. I'll be real quick, but when I started the Vigilantes, I thought it would be a few people that wanted to see behind the scenes of the podcast and,
Yep.
and make suggestions on who would be a good guest and that kind of thing. Man, it blew up. There's now 700 and some odd members. And so there's a Discord server where you can hang out with people who love being firefighters and love to talk about their issues, their problems, and share with each other and support each other. And if you want to be a part of that, you go to patreon.com/thevigilantes. And again, Travis, thank you for having me on. I love the conversation. I don't remember anything I said, but I hope it made sense.
I'll let you proof the tape before we release it. But
Fair.
But hopefully you'd be willing to come back and join us again.
Brother, I love having conversations on these topics. So at any time, just let me know. And dude, 100% professional and so beautiful. I love it. Anytime.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I find very frustrating. I'm getting ready to get off on my soapbox here for a minute. In the world of podcasting, we talk about very deep things on our show. We talk about everything from, cancer exposures to leadership to, lack of sleep. But our conversations are 30 minutes, sometimes 45 or longer. And we're really hitting that stuff. And if people listen to longer conversations and not go for that instant gratification that you were talking about, you'd be amazed at how much more you can learn, how much better you can be at your job. Do you find that frustrating for you as a podcaster as well?
I love long form content, so I agree with what you're saying. The attention span of the modern human being is like fly, gnat. It's like a goldfish. It's
Absolutely.
blinking. And it is frustrating. The cool part for me is I lived in an age of the podcast that's being born. It's been around for a while
Yep.
now, but for the first time in history, I think it was Jordan Peterson who said it. The first time in history, the spoken word can now be enjoyed like the written word.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only been in the last 10 years. I mean, they had audiobooks before,
Sure.
but it wasn't the same thing. So for the last decade or so is this new thing where the spoken word actually has the same reach as the written. And so it's a great time to be alive in that regard for those who take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the key that is frustrating for so many that don't.
So when you're seeing the YouTube short clips that we're going to make of this, you'll have to go back and see the full edition to understand all the greatness that Mr. Moore has brought to us today.
You're way too kind to say there was greatness, but I'm terrible at taking compliments.
No,
so
I'm
thank you.
I'm not just kidding, but we
No,
always,
I get it.
We always say here on our podcast, light your fire within. That's a wrap. All clear. like, subscribe, and watch the video on YouTube. Do it now. Shout out to the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Wellness Alliance, keeping our crews alive and strong. Hit allclearpodcast.com for every past episode. Grab your battalion newsletter. No spam, no selling, just the real deal. Stay sharp, watch your six, and we'll see you on the next call.